of the Guyana Police Force and ranks. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today's commissioning of the Guyana Police Force Officers Training Facility is another deliverable by the Citizen Security Program that is being funded by the IDB and the government of Guyana and is being implemented under the Ministry of Home Affairs. The objective of the program is to enhance security and coexistence by contributing to the reduction in the level of crime, violence, and insecurity in Guyana. We are already seeing changes as the program specifically aims to build capacity within the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Guyana Police Force, and a community action component that is aiming to deliver a pathway for safe neighborhoods. Under the building of capacity for the Guyana Police Force, the Officer Training Center was constructed at a cost of $158.4 million Guyana dollars by PD Contracting and supervised by Cebtre. The construction of this magnificent two-story building has a gross floor area of 18,320 square feet and utilizes common construction methodology with the typical RC reinforced columns, beams, concrete tile floors and table floors also, steel truss roof frame with zinc sheet covering, acoustic tile ceilings, and fair finish hollow blockwork on the external walls. The fully air-conditioned facility is outfitted with a modern auditorium with seating capacity of 230 persons, a library and reading center, cafeteria, recruitment center, information technology center, lecture theaters, classrooms, registry area, storerooms, and offices. It is these commissioning ceremonies that gives us an appreciation of the continuous effort by the government of Guyana and the Ministry of Home Affairs towards advancement in the security sector. And I know it's very close to the subject minister's continuously modernizing of the Guyana Police Force to counteract risk factors and to promote protective factors in communities, families, and individuals. This training center will definitely add capacity to the Guyana Police Force, and I trust that its use will be fully maximized. I've learned from the Honorable also that the pathway to building capacity and creating positive change is to have the relevant infrastructure and education. Thank you.
I'd now like to call on the IDB country representative in Guyana, Ms. Sophie McConnell, to give her remarks.
His Excellency President Bonita, Honorable Minister, the Commissioner of Police and members of the Guyana Police Force, Permanent Secretaries, these distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. For the IDB, security is a development project in Latin America and Guyana. Support focuses our action on prevention and execution strategy. Why? Because we estimate that crime and violence costs economies in the region between 5 and 10% of GDP. Crime negatively affects human lives, the economy, and social development. Violence degrades the quality of life for our citizens, and the social circle between each physical and social integrated in a community is possible. But the cause of effect for escalating social prevention, mitigating risk factors that trigger criminal behaviors as the individual, family, community, and social levels with special emphasis on vulnerable groups, especially youth and women. By situational prevention, by deterring the opportunities for crime through rehabilitation of public spaces, the use of new technologies, by working with police to promote efficient police management through prevention of crime and violence, by working on criminal justice systems to improve the management capacity of the actors within the criminal justice system that will allow for a more efficient, more just, and more accessible justice system. All this, I'm pleased to say that this program that we are talking about today, Cebtre Security, has addressed, and this is one of the outputs, and we're very happy to see the outcome. And although the program is coming to an end, it remains an important area of focus for the bank, and we are continuing to support the government of Guyana in its endeavor. It's an important part of our ongoing dialogue in our present country strategy. There are investments, and we're also always in dialogue. We promote dialogue among countries in the region, as we held last year our first regional policy dialogue in security, in which we also participated when ministers and vice ministers responsible for citizen security policies across the region met in September 2012. We will have a second policy dialogue in 2013, and in addition, at the end of this week, and we're very happy to have the government of Guyana participating, the Caribbean Department of the Bank will have a conference to our policy So the bank is proud to have been a contributor to the building and to the program and to this project, to the process of organizing crime prevention and law enforcement in Guyana, and to have partnered with the government of Guyana in this initiative. We look forward to the ongoing collaboration in the future that this partnership will continue to grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam. We do owe the IDB a debt of gratitude for partnering with us in the achievement of the deliverables under the Citizen Security Program. I'd now like to ask the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Leroy Bonner, to make some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, His Excellency, Mr. Donald Ramatar, Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, representative from the IDB, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Director of Public Prosecutions, heads of the discipline services, other invitees, friends, senior, junior officers, ranks of the Guyana, members of the media. First, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this compound where this banking training institution is located. His Excellency, I want to also thank you for leaving your busy schedule this afternoon to be here. It tells us of the emphasis that is placed on training within the Guyana Police Force. It is quite deserving that we have a building of this stature, as we are now in a better position not only to host local police training, but we can now be considered ready for accepting invitations, etc., for overseas personnel and ranks from other countries to be here to be trained. This building, I can tell you, sir, was tried and was tested. And we know that this building will be here for a long time. However, its upkeep must be maintained. It is my view that consideration be given for someone to manage, and this is in trade, to manage this institution on a daily basis. Sir, through the Citizen Security Program and the Ministry of Home Affairs, it's a pleasure to have the responsibility of a building of this nature. I can assure you that this facility will be used for the purpose for which it was constructed. The standard will be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the winds of change are sweeping through the Ministry of Home Affairs and its constituent departments, the Ghana Police Force, the Ghana Prison Service, the Ghana Fire Service, the General Register Office, and the Customs Anti-Narcotic Unit. No doubt you will recall that the ministry's strategic outlook for its modernization program was well articulated at a meeting held by the Honorable Clement Rohi, Minister of Home Affairs, with stakeholders on the 31st of December 2012. Under the leadership of Minister Rohi, the ministry is hard at work embracing innovation, collaboration, and cooperation to identify and implement changes that are truly meaningful to its overall performance. Minister Rohi has been feverishly exploring avenues for training opportunities for the Ghana Police Force with a view to building capacity. And over the period of the construction of this building, he has shown a keen interest in its completion because of his vision of its benefits for training in the Ghana Police Force. It is my pleasure now to ask the Honorable Clement Rohi, Minister of Home Affairs, to make some remarks.
Thank you, P.S. Mr. President, other senior representatives of we at the ministry are delighted to hand over this new facility to the Ghana Police Force. But in handing over this building to the Ghana Police Force, we have interests and concerns. This is a modern facility which will provide police officers who are expected to discharge their functions with the highest degree of professionalism. This center is positioned to provide the appropriate environment which will allow a wide range of training and programs to be conducted by the Ghana Police Force. It is my expectation that the facility will be utilized to the maximum, and I wish to recommend that it so be done on a full-time basis, that the classroom be occupied by day and by night, with training rigorously ongoing. The Ministry of Home Affairs considers training to be an integral part of the modernization thrust of the Guyana Police Force. Critical in this endeavor is the raising of standards and thus improving the quality of service being provided to our citizens. There is no place in this organization for rogue police officers. And one of the methods that must be used to correct this deficiency should be a higher standard of training. In the case of those who cannot be reformed or reoriented, the disciplinary code of the force must be applied condignly. The Ministry of Home Affairs, as part of its policy, envisions that training at this facility will complement overseas training being provided to police officers. Already, the Ministry of Home Affairs, with the Guyana Police Force, has initiated, thanks to offers made by friendly countries, a number of overseas training programs. These overseas training programs will continue throughout this year, 2013. The Ministry of Home Affairs supports the decentralization of training within the force. Currently, there are police training schools and police computer centers in Georgetown, Essequibo, and Berbice, with the aim of ensuring that ranks are fully oriented and equipped with the necessary tools and skills that will impact positively on the community with better use of IT equipment. We will support any effort that is made by the police force to upgrade the quality of training that is being offered by the various training institutions in the organization. Why this police officers training center? This training center has been constructed not because training courses for officers will not be conducted, but the conditions under which these courses were being conducted were not conducive to the standards consistent with a modern police force. Thus the need for this modern facility. The construction of this facility is consistent with the Government of Guyana IDB Citizen Security Program, which inter alia called for the institutional modernization of the Guyana Police Force. It is a tangible manifestation of government's efforts to push ahead with the institutional modernization of the force, notwithstanding the efforts of the political opposition in Parliament to stymie the reform process by voting down proposed legislation to enhance the reform process at the legislative level. Nevertheless, it is expected that with the quality of training to be provided at this center, citizens of Guyana will feel the difference in the quality of the service provided by the Guyana Police Force, enhancing professionalism at the top, where the example is expected to be set for subordinate ranks to follow, is of critical importance. The greater exposure to international best practices through training and more training is the best guarantee to ensure increasing professionalization, improved standards, and provision of a better service by the Guyana Police Force to the people of our country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. We now have a musical interlude from the Guyana Police Force. Stay by. Continue to support to the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Guyana Police Force to ensure that the quality of policing in Guyana is enhanced. The Ministry of Home Affairs wishes to assure you, Your Excellency, that the investment of the Government of Guyana in this project will contribute significantly to the development thrust that has been embarked upon for the Guyana Police Force by the Ministry of
Yes. With pleasure, I'll ask you to begin.
Thank you very much. Yes. Minister Clement Rowie, Commissioner of Police, Mr. Brunel, country rep of the IDB. I am very happy to open this training building for officers of the Guyana Police Force. I would like, at the very beginning, to express our government's gratitude to the IDB for working with us not only to realize this important institution, but for collaborating with us in many other very important ventures in Guyana. I thank you very much for that. Training has always been important, but in today's conditions, it is even more important. And the security forces has a very, very important role to play in our general development. For our country, and any society for that matter, to advance and to realize its potential, we must have this secure environment, for it will help to attract investors, it will help to create confidence within the society, and will help to bring out the best in our people when they operate in secure surroundings. And today's demands, modern day demands on us are very, very huge because of the rapid development in science and technology. It means that while our police force and our security forces at large will have to continue their traditional role of enforcing the law, upholding the law, capturing criminals and so forth, they are more added to them because of the changing world that we live in today. When we talk about globalization from the economic point of view, it's one thing, but it's not only in economics that we are becoming closer and closer together in the world, but also in negative things too, like crime. And there's a lot of interrelationship and closeness, and international crimes are a big and important factor today. And therefore, it is logical that if we are going to succeed in, we continue to have the goal of eliminating crime, but minimizing it, that we have to build new capacity in our security forces, particularly our police men and women. As I said, we have new type of crimes, many of which we're trying our best to deal with and call some new kind of training. And a police officer must now aim at being multidisciplined, because we have to fight crimes like money laundering, crimes like trafficking in drugs, as I mentioned, which has become very, very sophisticated because of the volume of money that is involved in that trade. Cybercrime is becoming a growing concern in many, many parts of the world, in the developed countries, and we must prepare here also for that we must be able to combat these type of crimes whenever we are confronted with them. And as long as the computer remains an important tool for our day-to-day functions at work and in many other aspects of our lives, this will be a threat that we have to constantly be looking at. In my course of work also, I have heard many chilling stories that affect fundamentally ordinary people, poor people sometimes, who don't have the capacity or who don't have the know-how of dealing with many things. One of the things that have been very upset about is finding out about how many people sometimes are losing their property with all kinds of crookery that takes place at some of these levels. And those who seems to be targeted, as I mentioned, are those who are the most vulnerable. I've noticed also that the Ministry of Housing, working together with the police force, have broken many scams and many other type of criminal activity as relates to some of these happenings in our society. Effective policing too is directly correlated, directly linked to good police relations within the community. We cannot fight crimes effectively without having good relations within the communities themselves. And it therefore seems to me that that's an important role, community relations, developing those relations with people in the various communities, that they must have confidence in the police force, that they should see the police as their friends to work with, to overcome difficulties, and to bring criminals to justice. Because I am convinced that the ordinary person would like to see all the criminals face justice. And if they are confident that their engagement with the force will be kept in confidence, then I'm sure that they will work with the police effectively. And the police must also carry out their duties in a very even-handed manner. Too many complaints come about people saying about police taking sides with different people, and invariably they say that those who can afford it, those who have money, are the ones that they take side with. I'll give you one example that is very common. The noise nuisance issue. You have heard about shops blaring way down in the night, blasting till 2 and 3 and 4 in the mornings. Things that are clearly against the law. But many communities still complain that nothing effective is done against these. But you will hear another complaint that if somebody got one event, maybe a wedding, and they have some music, very quickly the police will come and take away their equipment and carry it away to the stations, etc. And people see these things as being taken advantage of. We cannot have effective policing unless people see that the police work is even-handed, and the law, law must be blind and everyone will have the same consequences if they break the law. So that is, I think, very, very important, that the public must always have the opinion that the police is feared. It is very important from another point of view. I am one of the politicians. I know that politicians sometimes get a bad name. Everybody says, when you talking, like every time you do something wicked, they say you're like a politician. But I am one of the politicians who believe that there is morality in politics. And there is morality in our society. And I also believe very strongly that having a high standard of morality in our society is extremely important to lifting the quality of life in our country and in any society. Moral values are important. And I believe I am not alone in this view. I believe that the broad cross-section of the people of this country are of similar views. And that is why it is traumatic for a whole society, very, very traumatic for a whole society, when some things come about of a police officer or law enforcement officer or members of the disciplined forces are caught in crimes, are caught in accepting a bribe or in criminal activities. It is traumatic for a society because we expect that the disciplined forces will always be on the side of the law-abiding citizens of the society. And that causes a lot of grief and causes a lot of harm to people's psyche generally within the society. I would like also to touch on another issue that has tormented me from time to time, and that is the amount of cases that the police make and are thrown out, sometimes for the lack of evidence, poor preparations, and simple things like that, that allow a lot of criminals to walk free in our society. And I hope that this new institution that we created here, along with the other facilities that we have in society, will help us to lift the quality and to lift the standard of our work so that we will be able to prepare far better for many, many of the cases that we have in our country. And while and these are very important things. Very important things. You hear cases come with lack of evidence or somebody didn't turn up. And I myself am still struggling with why cases take so long to get to the court, but that's another issue. I think that they should get there faster, but whenever they get there, I think that we should be prepared to present our case in a good way and in a better way. I will also be the first to sympathize with the police force, because I know that they take a lot of licking sometimes in the press. Many times it is uncalled for, many times it's not true, but often also I must say that there are grounds for some of the criticisms that sometimes appear in the press. And therefore, it puts more responsibility on the force to recognize the rights, the human rights of people, and that again I suspect myself from my own experience in and about this country that a lot of the attacks on the police and a lot of what is used on the court, in the court sometimes against them is not generally true. But sometimes one example that is held up that is true is used regularly against them. And therefore it is important that you observe that this should not be a criticism that should be directed to our disciplined forces, because the very existence of our police and disciplined forces is to protect the rights of people and to, in fact, each officer in the disciplined forces really should be standing out within their society because of their integrity and their honesty in the society. So we have to be careful. We know that it is sometimes used against the police wrongfully, but at the same time we must be able to prove that that is not so. I would like to touch on another issue within the society that constantly also shocks the mind when you read some of these things in the newspaper, and that is domestic violence in our society. Most, if not all, of the domestic violence that have occurred and ended in death, most, if not all of them, had a history. And if you investigate that history and check, you will see many of them have often gone to report these matters to the authority. And I know, growing up, you used to hear when a boy and a girl had a fight, or a husband and wife, you used to say that husband and wife cutlass is bent with their own drum. And there's business and so forth. But I think that those old time saying, those are some, I think that is one that we should do away with. That we cannot look at those things as the personal business of a man and his wife. Each one of these things must be investigated, and every one should be looked at as can potentially lead to tragic consequences. And therefore, we need to have a new approach, a new attitude in this regard. And I hope that in the training of our officers, that these things will form a very important part of their courses to ensure that not only at a macro level, but in the household, people should feel safe from tyrants and those who abuse them for one reason or the other, or abuse our children. They claim that that's not your business because it's their children, but they are our children as well, and we have a right to be involved and be ready to protect them. Ladies and gentlemen, I want once more to congratulate the police and the ministry in focusing heavily on training. Over the years, we have more or less recapitalized the force with equipment, vehicles, etc. We are now investing heavily in training so that we have, very soon we will have our own labs, laboratories, and people like Ms. Mangar, who lost her daughter, will not have to be waiting for years, hopefully to have results of some testing being done. So we hope, therefore, that we will have a higher level, a more educated police force, a more highly trained force, a force that will be capable of dealing with any type of security circumstances that threaten the citizens of our country. Once more, congratulations, and I hope you make the best use of this facility so that we can lift not only your standards, but lift the quality of life in our country. I thank you very much for your attention.